They renovated my house and then locked me out. Welcome back to the place where real stories feel stranger than fiction. Today's story is one that will make you question trust, contracts, and just how far things can spiral when you let the wrong people into your life. I never thought something like this could happen to me. I wasn't careless. I wasn't reckless. I did everything by the book. Or at least, I thought I did. It started about a year ago, when I finally decided to renovate my house. The place had been in my family for years. It wasn't fancy, but it had character: old wooden floors, a slightly crooked staircase, and windows that let in the most beautiful golden light in the evenings. But it was aging. The plumbing was outdated, the wiring was questionable, and honestly, it needed a serious upgrade. I had saved for years. Late nights, overtime, skipping vacations, everything went into that renovation fund. This wasn't just about improving a house. This was about building a future, so I did what anyone would do. I started looking for contractors. At first, everything seemed overwhelming. So many companies, so many promises. Some were too expensive, others felt sketchy. Then I found them. They had a polished website. Before and after photos that looked incredible. Dozens of glowing reviews. Their representative Mark was smooth, confident, and reassuring. He walked through my house like he already knew exactly what needed to be done. "You've got great bones here," he said, tapping lightly on one of the walls. "We can turn this into something amazing." And I believed him. We discussed timelines, budgets, materials, everything. He was patient, never pushy. If anything, he made me feel like I was in control. The contract looked standard. Payments split into phases. Clear milestones. Estimated completion. 3 months. 3 months. That was manageable. I signed. Looking back, that was the moment everything began to go wrong. The first few weeks were actually great. The crew showed up early, worked efficiently, and kept things relatively clean. Walls came down, new frames went up. I could finally see the transformation taking shape. Mark would call me regularly with updates. "Everything's on track," he'd say. "You're going to love it." There were a few minor delays, nothing unusual. A shipment of tiles got postponed. A plumbing part had to be reordered. I didn't think much of it. Then came the first red flag. One afternoon, I showed up unannounced. I had taken the day off work and thought I'd check on progress. The front door was locked. That wasn't unusual, they had keys. But when I knocked, no one answered. I circled around to the back. That's when I noticed something strange. The back door had a new lock. At first, I assumed they'd replaced it as part of the renovation. But I didn't have a key. I called Mark. "Oh yeah," he said casually. "We changed the locks for security. You know, tools and materials inside. We'll give you the new keys once we're done." I hesitated. "My house, and I don't have a key." "It's temporary," he assured me. "Just standard practice." Something felt off, but I let it go. That was my second mistake. Over the next few weeks, communication started slipping. Calls went unanswered. Messages took longer to get replies. When I did manage to speak with Mark, there was always an explanation. "Busy week, big project, we're juggling. Don't worry, yours is still a priority." Meanwhile, the 3-month timeline came and went. 4 months. 5 months. Still not finished. I'd started pushing harder. "I need to see the house," I told him. "Of course," he said. "We'll schedule a walkthrough soon." Soon never came. Then one day, everything changed. I got a call, but not from Mark. It was a neighbor. "Hey," she said, her voice uncertain. "I didn't want to alarm you, but there are people moving into your house." My heart dropped. "What do you mean moving in?" I saw furniture being brought in, curtains, even a couch. I thought she had the wrong house. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said. When I arrived, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. There were lights on inside. Through the window, I could see someone walking around. Not construction workers, someone living there. I rushed to the front door and tried the handle. Locked. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Louder. Finally, the door opened. A woman stood there. She looked at me like I was the one out of place. Yes, she said. This is my house. She frowned. No, it isn't. We just moved in. My mind couldn't process what she was saying. Moved in. What do you mean moved in? I own this house. She looked confused, but not convinced. Look, we signed a lease, she said. If you have an issue, you need to talk to the company. What company? She named it, the same company I hired. That's when everything clicked and fell apart at the same time. I stepped back, my hands shaking. You're telling me? You're renting this house? Yes, she said, clearly uncomfortable now. We paid deposit and first month already. I couldn't breathe. I immediately called Mark. No answer. Again. No answer. I left messages, texts, everything. Nothing. I went straight to their office. Or at least, where their office was supposed to be. The sign was gone. The windows were empty. They had disappeared. Just like that night. I sat in my car across the street from my own house, watching strangers live inside it. Laughing. Watching TV. Living a life that should have been mine. I wish I could say I handled it calmly. I didn't. I called the police when they arrived. I explained everything. Showed them my documents, the contract, proof of ownership. They listened. Then they knocked on the door and spoke to the tenants. After a while, one of the officers came back to me. This is a civil matter, he said. What do you mean a civil matter? That's my house. They have a lease, he replied. We can't remove them without a court order. I felt like I was losing my mind. They're not supposed to be there. The company had no right to rent it out. I understand, he said, his tone calm but distant. But this needs to go through the courts. Courts. Lawyers. Time. All while strangers lived in my home. The next few weeks were a nightmare. I hired a lawyer immediately. We filed everything: fraud, illegal leasing, breach of contract. Every possible charge. But legal systems don't move fast. Meanwhile, I was still paying my mortgage on a house I couldn't even enter. The tenants weren't bad people. They had been scammed too. They thought everything was legitimate. They had signed papers, paid money, trusted the same people I had trusted. We were both victims, but that didn't make it any easier. Every time I drove by, it felt like a punch to the chest. My house looked beautiful, completely renovated, exactly how I had imagined it, but I couldn't step inside. Months passed. Eventually, the truth started to unravel. The company wasn't just a renovation business, it was a scam operation. They would take on renovation projects, gain access to properties, change locks, and then illegally rent them out before disappearing. By the time victims realized what was happening, they were gone. New name, new location, same scheme. I wasn't the first, and I probably wasn't the last. The case dragged on for nearly a year. Court hearings, paperwork, endless waiting. Finally, the ruling came. The lease was declared invalid. The tenants were ordered to vacate. I got my house back, but it didn't feel like a victory. When I walked through the front door for the first time in over a year, everything felt different. It looked perfect, but it didn't feel like home anymore. Strangers had lived there. Their presence lingered in ways I couldn't explain. The trust I once had in people, in systems, was gone. I had spent years saving for that renovation, and in the end, it cost me far more than money. It cost me peace of mind. It cost me the feeling of safety in my own home, and that's something no contract can protect. So if you're thinking about renovating, hiring contractors, or trusting someone with your home, be careful, ask more questions. Double check everything, and never ever give up full control, because sometimes the people you hire to build your dream are the same ones who can take it away. And lock you out. But the story didn't end when I got the house back. In a way, That was only the beginning of a different kind of nightmare. Because once the legal battle was over, once the locks were finally changed back into my name, and once the silence returned to those walls, I thought things would slowly go back to normal. They didn't. The first night I stayed there again felt wrong. Not dangerous. Not haunted. Just unfamiliar. I remember standing in the living room, looking around at everything that had been renovated exactly the way I wanted: the floors, the lighting, the open kitchen layout, and yet I felt like a guest, like I had walked into someone else's house. I tried to shake it off, told myself it was just stress. After everything that had happened, of course, it would feel strange, so I unpacked my things, tried to settle back in, but little things started bothering me. The way the cabinets were arranged, not how I had approved. The paint shade, slightly off from what I chose. Even the bedroom, my bedroom, felt like it had been lived in by someone else, because it had. I found small traces everywhere. Not obvious things like furniture they had taken all that, but subtle things. A scratch on the wall that wasn't there before, a faint stain in the corner of the carpet, a loose hinge on a cabinet. Tiny reminders that someone else had occupied my space, and I couldn't unsee them. Sleep didn't come easy those first few nights. Every creak of the house made me alert. Every passing car light through the window made me sit up. It wasn't fear of someone breaking in. It was something stranger. It was the feeling that the house had a history now that didn't belong to me. I started spending less time there. At first I told myself it was temporary, just until I adjusted. But days turned into weeks. I found excuses to stay late at work, to visit friends, to be anywhere but inside those walls. And then came something I didn't expect at all. A letter. It was slipped under my front door one evening. No stamp, no address, just my name written on it. I picked it up slowly, my chest tightening. Inside was a single piece of paper. Typed. No signature. It read, "You shouldn't have taken it back." I stared at the words for a long time at first. I thought it was some kind of sick joke, maybe the previous tenants upset about being forced out, maybe someone trying to scare me. But something about it felt deliberate. Cold. I immediately called my lawyer. He told me to report it, which I did, but without any evidence of who sent it. It didn't go anywhere. Still, it planted something in my mind, a doubt, a question I couldn't ignore anymore. What if the people behind the scam weren't done? I started being more cautious, checking doors twice, installing cameras, adding extra locks. I even got a security system installed, something I had never considered before all this. For a while, nothing happened. No more letters, no strange activity. Life almost started to feel normal again. Almost. Then, one night, the alarm went off. It was around 2:30 in the morning. That piercing sound jolted me awake instantly. My heart was racing as I grabbed my phone and checked the security app. Motion detected. Back. DOORI froze. For a moment, I couldn't move. Then I called the police, whispering, barely able to keep my voice steady. I told them someone might be trying to break in. They told me to stay where I was. The longest 10 minutes of my life followed. Every second felt stretched, every sound amplified. Kept staring at the live camera feed. And then I saw it, a figure, standing near the back entrance, not trying to break in, just standing there watching. I couldn't make out the face clearly, but they weren't hiding, they weren't rushing, they weren't afraid, they were just there. Like they knew something. IDIDN single quotes 2. By the time the police arrived, the figure was gone. No signs of forced entry, no damage. Nothing taken. It was as if they had only come to be seen, to remind me this wasn't over. After that night, everything changed again. I couldn't stay there anymore, not alone. I moved out temporarily, at least. That's what I told myself. I stayed with a friend across town. Days turned into weeks. Again. The house sat empty, beautiful, finished, and completely untouched. I still paid for everything, utilities, mortgage, maintenance, but I couldn't bring myself to live there. Eventually, my lawyer reached out with new information. They had tracked down one of the people involved in the scam. Not Mark, but someone lower in the chain, an employee. He had been arrested in connection with similar cases. And under questioning, he talked. What he revealed made everything worse. This wasn't random. They didn't just pick houses by chance. They chose targets carefully. Single owners. No close neighbors watching. Constantly. Properties undergoing major renovations. Because that gave them time and access, and most importantly, owners who trusted them, people like me. But there was something else he said that stuck with me, something I couldn't forget. They don't like loose ends. That's what he told the authorities. Loose ends. People who pushed too hard, people who tried to expose them, people who didn't just walk away quietly. I had taken them to court. I had forced the situation into the open. I hadn't just been a victim, I had been a problem. And suddenly, that letter made more sense. You shouldn't have taken it back. It wasn't just a threat, it was a warning. Months passed again. The case expanded. Authorities began linking multiple properties, multiple victims, across different areas. It became bigger than just my story, but for me, it was still personal, because that house was still mine, and I had to decide what to do with it. Sell it, rent it out, try to live there again. None of the options felt right. One afternoon, I went back. For the first time in a while, the air inside was stale. Still. Like time had paused. Walked through each room slowly, touching the walls. Looking at the details, trying to reconnect with something that used to feel like home. And then I realized something. The house itself wasn't the problem. What happened was, I had let what they did take more than just time and money. I had let it take my sense of ownership, my confidence, my control. Standing there, in the middle of the living room, I made a decision. I wasn't going to run from it anymore. This was still my house, and I was going to take it back fully. Not just legally, mentally, emotionally. I started small, cleaning everything, repainting certain areas, replacing things that didn't feel right, making changes. Not because they were necessary, but because I needed to reclaim the space. Piece by piece. Day by day. And slowly, it started to feel different. Not the same as before, but not either. Something new. Something rebuilt. The fear didn't disappear overnight, but it faded. The memories didn't vanish, but they lost their grip. And eventually, I stayed the night again, then another. And another, until one day, I realized I was home. Not the same version of home as before, but a stronger one. Because now, I knew something I didn't know back then. Trust isn't something you give blindly. Control isn't something you hand over completely. And your home is more than just walls and contracts. It's something you protect, something you fight for, something you don't let anyone take from you, no matter how convincing they seem. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where something feels off, listen to that instinct. Ask questions, push back, stay involved. Because the moment you stop paying attention is the moment someone else can step in. And sometimes, they won't just renovate your house. They'll try to take it and lock you out. This story is a reminder that sometimes the scariest things aren't ghosts or shadows. They're real people, and they don't always leave when the job is done.